Right. We're learning about revealing God in the world, which, in other words, taking what might be, what seems to be the least important topic in the world and make it the most important topic in the world. From zero to infinity. And there's a lot of people in the world that doubt even if God exists, and they've got a lot of good reasons to doubt. And God made the world that way. So God made it that is not revealed. So that becomes sort of the most unimportant and impractical topic in the world. It's like if you opened up a special course, how to fix chariot wheels or something. The wheels for your chariot. If your chariot wheel gets stuck with it, who's going to come? Nobody drives chariots nowadays. It's just simply not practical. But the chariots don't even exist. The same thing. We're thinking about God. We're going to love God and fear God and reveal God in the world. We're going to draw down from Yud K to Vav K. And that's, in a way, to most people in the world, less practical than fixing chariots. Fixing chariots. I mean, if there is such a thing as God, so he was like, when he created the world 1 billion years ago, then he was involved. But so the Rebbe is trying to tell us that the purpose of Judaism is to show that it's not so. And Abraham was the first person to realize this, and everybody in the world was against him. Everyone in the world was against him. Because nobody thought it was important whatsoever. God was too far away, he was too uninvolved, he was too uninterested, he was too, if you want to call it, impotent. It was too, what do they call it? Ambivalent. And that's basically what other religions say now. Judaism says no. Judaism says that God is creating the world. God cares about the world. God creates me and you. Nothing is more important than that. And even more, when we do something for God, what God requests in the Torah, we feel God's will. So God gets pleasure and the world becomes changed. The world becomes different. It becomes more difficult to do destructive things and easier and more pleasurable to do good things, to do what the Creator wants. All of a sudden, you realize that the whole entire world is God's world, right? It's God's world. If you're in a kingdom, now there's no kingdoms, but you do what the king wants. Well, that's what they want now, this world, one government or something. Everybody's going to do what the United Nations wants or something like that. Everybody's going to do what they want, right? Because everybody's going to want to do what they want. That's when there's no God. So that's what the idea that you get. That's what Nebuchadnezzar wanted, and that's what Titus wanted, and that's what all the evil people in the world. That's what they wanted, to conquer the whole world. What's so important about conquering the world? That you become God. You become God. And then what? What happens when you discover you're not God? What happens is that you don't discover. First of all, it never really happens. They always come to the Jews, try to conquer the Jews, and then all of a sudden, God steps in. Maybe doesn't step in as fast as we would like, but then God steps in. Because you can't, in the end, the Jews are God's people. So that's what the Rebbe is trying to do. That's the idea of Mashiach. Mashiach is to make everyone feel God, to make everyone feel that there's a creator, to make everyone feel happy, lucky that we're being created, and even happier and luckier that we can actually repay the creator, to feel this. And if everybody listens to whatever it is, the WHO or something like that, and they put on masks and they do whatever they want to, just for their health, so for sure everyone's going to do just to keep away disease. So for sure everybody's going to do what God wants to make you more healthy. The world will be concerned with being more and more healthy. There's no end to it, and it won't be run by fear. The world will be run by love. Okay. So we said it's not so hard as we think. It says that every Jewish child, this is what the Jews are supposed to do. The Jews are chosen to do this. And every Jewish child, before he was born, it says that the that the Torah, there was taught the whole entire Torah, and there was a fire burning over his head. That's the Yud and the Hey of God's name. The fire over his head, that's the Yud, and then the Hey is teaching him all the Torah. And then he comes into the world. The problem is to get it into our emotions. So says the Rebbe, the way you do that nowadays is by what's called tshuva. Tshuva means that you simply stop thinking about yourself and you start thinking about your creator. And the more you do that, and you realize that your creator gave you a handbook, he gave you instructions how to repay him for creating you. And that's called the Torah. By the non-Jews, it says 7 Noahide commandments. You think about this, then it affects your emotions. That's the letter Vav of God's name. And your thought, speech, and action, that's the letter Hey of God's name. Okay. So that says, that's what we mean when we say Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Shmei is Shem Yudke. That's these first two letters that we had when we were born, when God taught us the whole Torah. And Mavorach, it should be drawn down into, finally, into even thought, speech, and action. Oh, we did this yesterday. You know, 1 second. Here we go. We did this yesterday. Excuse me 1 second. So it says, Ani Hashem lo sheniti. I am God. I never change. I am God. Whoa. Excuse me. I am God. I never change. Where is this? This level comes down and can be brought down into the mitzvot. When we do the commandments, we connect. It's like putting a plug into the plug into the what is it? The socket, the wall socket. When you do the commandments are like the plug that you plug in to the essence of God, the essence of God's will. The commandments are why God created the world. The Jews should do the commandments. Therefore, Gam Maisa Mitzvahs, also the commandments, they also have this total surrender connection to the Creator. Suddenly you feel you're being created. But so they say that when the Ramban would put on tefillin, he had to have 2 people hold him up because he realized that he was connecting to God, like going into the holy temple. But the same thing when you learn the Torah is also the same connection. The Torah is the wisdom of God. When you do the Torah and the commandments, shetechla alav nefesh, that your soul should expire to its source. That's the way it should be. And you have to think, when I am doing the commandment, I am not just only doing the heritage of the Jewish people and this wonderful, the ritual that I'm doing in Judaism is true, and it was given on Mount Sinai, thousands of years ago. We've been holding on to Judaism. All these things are true, but that doesn't make you excited. That doesn't make you, connected to the Creator. A person, when he does Torah and the commandments, you have to think, these commandments are given to me by God right now, just like it was on Sinai. And the Torah, the same thing, is being given to me right now. And even if you're just reading the words of the rabbis, and so you say, this is not so, those words were also given by God to all the Jews for all time on Mount Sinai. Because then your soul becomes connected, la makora the kula, to the source of everything, makor mayim chayim, the source of living water. These things were all hinted by King David in his Psalms. Right? Like a deer thirsts for water, so my soul thirsts for you, God. Because God is the source of all life. Right now, He's creating a source of all being. Which is not the case of Omer la Torah, which is not the case. A person says that I learned the Torah, and that's all I have is the Torah. I learned the Torah, and he's a great Torah genius. He's a genius person. Is blessed with tremendous intellect. Then by a person like this, the Torah becomes basically like any other wisdom. This is just infallible wisdom. It's God's wisdom. But you don't get emotional about it. That's the point. It all becomes intellectual. So it stays up in the first two letters of God's name, Yud and then Hey. And it doesn't come down to the Vav, and not to the Hey, not to the final Hey. And this says, Oti Azvu, you have left me, Makor Mayim Chayim, the source of living water. In other words, to understand, the Jewish people, up to about 1,000, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, that basically everybody knew the Torah. There were people that were ignoramuses, but the ignoramuses, they knew all the laws. They knew what was right. They knew what was wrong. They knew the laws. Maybe they didn't know all the details, but all the rest of the Jews, they knew all the Torah. It was passed down from mouth to ear. There were huge schools of rabbis that they went over these laws by heart. They went over the laws by heart. Then when the temple was destroyed, then things started to get confused a little bit. And very shortly after the temple was destroyed, then Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Rabbeinu HaKodesh, that according to the Talmud, he was fit to be Mashiach. He was supposed to be Mashiach. That he wrote it down, made the Mishnah. Then it started to be written down. And it was written down only 500 years ago. What, 500, something like this, 600 years ago, was the printing presses. There were no printing presses. So it was passed down, it was written, it was handwritten. And it was, they went over it and they argued about it, and there was the slightest mistake, everybody would jump on it. And that's what the Talmud is about. That's what the whole Talmud is about. And every word and every opinion in the Talmud and in the Mishnah is the word of God. God wanted it to be this way. But what it's possible for a person to get involved in the wisdom of the Torah, in the understanding of the Torah, and like they say, the labyrinths of the Talmud, and forget about God. And forget about God totally. It just becomes this great, tremendous wisdom, holy wisdom that he has, and he wants everybody to respect him, and he hasn't got any humility. He thinks I'm better than everybody else because I know the Torah, and in a way he is better than everybody else, but he's not better than God. And it should be that the closer he comes to God, that the more humble he should be. That's what it should be. And that's what we're talking about here. Look, I am giving before you, I, Misha Anochi, the essence of God, the first word of the 10 Commandments, Anochi. This is the first of the 10 Commandments. Shal Torah, Anochi, the essence of God, the reason why God is creating the world. Noten livnechem, I give to you, bebechinas panim. I put lifnechem means I put before you, but also the word lifnechem means to your face, and it also means to your inside. Lifnei bifnim, panim shalachem, the inside of you. Bechinas bracha, I am giving you into your insides, into your soul. God is saying, I'm giving you the blessing. Don't just think I'm giving you a bunch of words and a bunch of commandments and a bunch of instructions on the world. That's also true. That certainly is true. God is giving us words and he's giving us instructions and he's giving commandments that we should do. But if you do that, then you'll just think this is just a means for me to go to heaven. And you become selfish. You're doing everything for yourself. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to find out what's going on right now. Now is constant. Now, in a way, now is the only real reality now. The only real reality is right now. That's God's name. God's name is Yud, and then Hey Vav Hey. Hey Vav Hey is Hoveh, to be, right now. There's Yihiyeh, will be, and Hoya is past, and Hoveh is now. There's Yud, and then there's Hoveh, God's name. That's God's name. God's name is right now. Shebeshvil, that in the future, we'll see that all the past is also right now. All the good deeds that we did are eternal. They are right now. Because there is this inside of you. Inside of you is what? Havaya, the name of God. It says, Anochi Hashem Elokeichem. I am, because Yisrael, because the Jewish people, they're called the sons of God. They rose up in God's thought. The rest of the world is God's word, and the Jews are God's thought. Therefore, Tochlu, you're able, the Jews are able to draw on themselves Bechinat bracha, this blessing. The Torah was given to the Jews. God took the Jews out of Egypt. It says God created the whole world for the Jews. So why did he have to create the world? Just leave the Jews. That's what do you need a world for? If the world is for the Jews, so don't create the world. Just create Jews, and that's all. It says no, the world, God created the world for the Jews to fix. The Jews are supposed to perfect the world. Someone wrote me a few days ago that there's the LGBTs, the homosexuals, a big thing, homosexuality. It's everything God creates is from God. Everything God creates is godly. It's good. and so also the homosexuals is a good thing. How can you say anything against them? How can you say? So I said, listen, God also creates murder. All the 10 commandments are negative things. Now, not all of them. Most of them. Don't kill, don't steal. The last 5 especially. Don't kill, don't steal, don't covet, don't be licentious. Don't make these things, and you don't have to command not to do it. But no, God, everything God made in the world is perfect, but some things are perfectly ready to be fixed up. God put us into the world to fix the world up. So it says, that's what it says, God put the Jews in the world to draw down blessing, to make the right choices in the world, to choose to refrain from bad things. But God created the bad things, and God wants these bad things to be here, to tempt us, to challenge us, to strengthen us, that we should not do it, to refrain from it, to do the negative commandments. And by means of that, then that brings the blessing into the world. The whole entire world, we see the purpose for the whole entire world. That's the job of the Jews. So if you're not, I don't know who's listening to this class, but if you're not Jewish, you should go to a Jewish person and say, what are you? Why don't you keep Shabbat? You are the chosen people. Keep the Shabbat. What is your problem? Do the commandments. Come on, you're preventing me from getting a blessing. That's the source of everything. That the Jewish people have the ability to draw from the source of everything. That's what it means. Bracha, a blessing. That's this week's Torah portion, right? We call this the source of all being. That's what it means at the bracha tishva'u, that you will get the blessing when you listen to what God says. You get the blessing. Asher tishmu, the blessing when you listen to what God says. This sentence is a little bit strange because this is what it says in the Torah. The blessing, asher, that you listen to the commandments of God. It should say you get the blessing when you do the commandments of God. One way you can say is the blessing. What's the blessing? That you can do the commandments of God. That's a blessing. Just the fact that you can do them. That God put commandments in the world and he made it possible for us to connect to him and connect the world to him. That's the biggest blessing of all, that we have the responsibility to do it. That's the blessing, Asher Tishmu, that you will listen to the commandments of God, because Mirosh Mikerem Nesucha, because God's will comes from the essence. Rosh Mikerem, from the very beginning, it was carved out. This is the Mikerem, this is the source of all being. Okay, let's see. This is just bringing places where we can look up what this means. And we're not going to look at all these places. So let's skip to the next. Here we go. Eh, 1 minute, 1 minute. Maybe I missed this over there. One minute, excuse me. Just pause this. All right, now we are going to learn another mimer. We finished that mimer. We talked about how to reveal God's name inside of each and every one of us. Jews, with Torah, with commandments, thinking about God, and that draws from the Yud Hey, which is the Torah that God taught us when we were in the womb before we were born. down to the vav, which is our emotions, down to the hey, which is thought, speech, and action in the world by thinking. Go over it and try to embody it. It's an unending task. As long as we're alive, we have this beautiful task of revealing God in the world. Now, we're in the month of Elul. The month of Elul is the month when it says in Chabad, the king is in the field. What does it mean the king is in the field? We're going to find out. That's what this mimer is about. The king is in the field. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. There we go. And we'll go like this. The king is in the field. Okay, simply speaking, the month of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, we make God a king. We make God a king. But in order to make God a king, we have to understand why we should make God a king, why we should vote for him. Making a king, the people in the beginning, they declare the king. Like it was with King David. They said, right, long live King David, like it was with Saul also. Long live King Saul, Olam. Long live the Yechia Melech David, Olam. That's where the Chabadniks get this idea of saying Yechia Melech HaMashiach, that the Rebbe is the Mashiach, coronate the Mashiach. And the Rebbe said you should say it, because the people have to coronate the king. But how do you even know there's a king? And how do you know that he's even worthwhile that you should coronate him? And I mean, coronating a king basically means that you lose your autonomy to a certain degree. On the other hand, the people realize that on their own, they make the wrong decisions. But who's going to make the right decisions? So you have a king that knows what's really for the good of the people and the good of the country. That's what it's supposed to be. A monarch. In a way, monarchy is the best type of government, because a democracy, which I guess you can say is the second best, is you're putting the power into the hands of the people, and the people, they don't know how to govern. You're just hoping that the majority, that God will have mercy and that the majority of people will want the right thing. But if you have a king, and if that king is a good king, so he knows how to rule, and his decisions could be the opposite of what the people want. And nevertheless, the people will do it because they know that he's the man, he's the one. Okay, so that's the idea of a king. As soon as Napoleon came along, as he made royalty and king like a dirty word, but there's not a good thing anymore. You have to, everybody has to have equality and liberty and fraternity. And in a way, he had a good point. But the fact he wanted to, what do you say, throw out the baby with the bathwater. He wanted to, even though the kingship was a bad thing because the kings were bad, but if you have a good king, there's nothing better. And God is a good king. And that's why the Mashiach is going to be called a king, because he's going to manifest what God wants in the world. But you can say, how does he know? So how did Moses know to take the Jewish people out? How did he know? How did Abraham know? How did he know? First of all, he sensed it inside of himself that that's the truth. So, okay, now we have so here we have the month of Elul, and the month of Elul is a preparation for choosing God a king, making God into a king. But in order to do that, we have to have a little bit of a feeling that we need a king, and that there is a king, and that the king is good, that we won't get a bad monarch, a despot, what they call. So therefore, God makes an advertising, what do you call it? An advertising campaign for his election campaign. The election. When is that? The month of Elul. In the month of Elul, God makes himself available. Ever you can feel God more in the month of Elul. The problem is he's not so royal. If God makes himself available, so that's already sort of not God. This is the king comes out of the palace, and he makes himself available to everybody. So there's a good side to it, is that he's available. The bad side is, what type of a king is this? Huh? Like Groucho Marx, famous comedian, said, any country club that would take me as a member, I wouldn't want to be a part of. In other words, you want to choose a king like this, a king that has to be sitting in his palace. Any king that comes out of his palace and comes to me, right? I don't want to choose a king like that. So of course there's a danger to that. But the problem is that we're so far away from what the king is, from what God is. The Rebbe is writing here to religious people. not just religious people. He's writing to tremendous Talmudic scholars that devote their life and their heart and their mind to serving God. And he's telling them, listen, we're all far away from the Creator. And the month of Elul, we get a little bit of a glimpse of how far away we really were and how the Creator is going to help us. He's the one that will say, that's the month of Elul. God, it says that God makes himself available. So here we go. Ani ledodi ledodi li. That's this month of Elul, which is going to start this next week. What is it, on Wednesday night? Ani ledodi ledodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. Here we go. Yeah, Wednesday night will be the month of Elul. Ani ledodi li is really the last day of Thursday night is the beginning of the month of Elul, first day of Elul. Ani ledodi ledodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. These are the first letters, Rosh Tevis, the first letters of Elul. I go to my beloved. Who's my beloved? God. God loves me. I love him. But Dodi li, and my beloved goes to me. That's the first letters of Elul. Just one moment. I just want to see if the sound is good here. Let me just give me one moment. Give me one moment, please. Yeah, okay. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. So God loves us. God is infinitely loving and caring, and I am going to him. And then after that, Dodi li. My beloved reacts, God reacts, he comes back to me. That's the first letters of Elul. Ha'inyan is like this. Elul, and Elul matchil begins this thing of Ani Ladodi. Elul begins this movement of us to God. Hainu bechinas es rusha dilatata, an arousal from below. We're going up to God. That's the month of Elul. Then comes the month of Tishrei, starts off the holidays of God coming back to us. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, that they are drawing down God below. God starts to react. The Bechinat Yitkalu to be revealed. Now we'll see that there's other places that say that it's not exactly this way. That the month of, that really godliness, our efforts to serve God go up to Yom Kippur, and they're only revealed in the last part of Tishrei in Sukkot. That's when everything becomes revealed. Okay, that's one way of looking, one angle of looking at things. But here the Rebbe is looking at it from a different angle. He's trying to stress the big difference between Elul and Tishrei. Elul, we do it all ourselves. We do it all ourselves. It's not a holiday. They're not special days. We're going to see that they are sort of special, but it's not a holiday. We have to do it all on our own. Then comes Rosh Hashanah. That's a holiday. Then God reveals to us that was the day he created man. Yom Kippur was the day God forgave everyone. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, so to speak, God starts doing things. He created the world. He created man. That's Rosh Hashanah. God forgives us. That's from above to below. He forgives us. That's God doing it all. Okay, but on Elul, we do it everything. So Elul, that's Ani Ladodi. I go up to my beloved. And from Tishrei, that's Dodi Li. Like it says, Smolo Tachat Laroshi, King Solomon said, his left arm is under my head. The Ramino, and his right arm embraces me. Shemi Rosh Hashanah, that from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, this is what's called God's left arm. Bechinas Yira. God appears to us. This is God revealing himself to us. God is doing it. That's Rosh Hashanah. Very good. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, those are called the days of awe. Yomim Noraim. God is doing, he's revealing himself to us. That's God's left arm. Smaller bechinas yira, that's fear. The fear, why fear? Because Azu Zaman is galus, because then is revealed the kingship of God is Berech. And everybody is in awe. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, you're awe. Lochin, therefore, Korim, Lo Hamelech, therefore, God is called the king. from Rosh Hashanah, God's called the king, Ki Malchutocha, because God's kingship, Malchut Kolamim, is creating all of the worlds. From God's lowest aspect, which is kingship, that's the highest thing of all the world that's creating all the worlds. Pirish, Afilu Ba'olamos Nalim, even the upper worlds, Tipo Aleim, Ema B'Fachat, even the upper worlds, on Rosh Hashanah there falls upon them fear, awe of the king, trepidation. The boss is here. You ever go in for a job interview? Usually, I don't know how it goes in now, but you dressed up nice. You were all, you have to watch out what you say, what you do. You have to, but you're being inspected because you're in the presence of someone who is, how do you say, more powerful than you. You're sort of in his hands. That's what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is. We realize suddenly that we're being created. And true, we should be very grateful and very happy. But on the other hand, our whole being, our whole existence, suddenly we realize it's not in our hands. That's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. From this, Nimshach Kam Lamata, also below, to all the Jewish people to accept the yoke of God's kingship on themselves. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That the year is all paneim, and that the fear of God should be on our faces, Kol Hashanah, the whole rest of the year. Because the fear of God, Ba'avaso, and His love, Eino Asuya, they are not made Venetua and inserted in the heart of man, on him, on his own. Only from a ray which is given from above. In the time when it's revealed. In other words, you have fear of God, you have love of God. Why? Because God gives it to you. God reveals himself, and that is a time of awe. Rosh Hashanah, Yirah. That's the level of Dodi Li. That's the thing of God coming to me. There's people I know in Israel. Rosh Hashanah, I don't know so much because there you have to go to synagogue, you have to listen to this. But there's a lot of people in Israel, total anti-religious people. I mean, like, leftists of the leftists. But that's the whole thing that's going on in Israel now, the changing of the judicial system. The judicial system are these people who are like ultimate leftists, atheists, sworn, very intelligent people. Very intelligent people. They pass it from generation to generation, from generation. So they're totally removed. They don't like the religious people. They can't stand the Jewish religion. And they fast on Yom Kippur. When comes Yom Kippur, they're fast, and they're even ashamed of it. But they fast on Yom Kippur. Most of them do. Why do they do it? Don't ask me. It's a Jewish custom. Fast on Yom Kippur. In other words, they feel the awe of the Creator, even if they don't know what it is. They don't use it. That's the month of Tishrei. God appears to us in His glory. God comes. But first of all, we have to arouse our love and fear by means of us. Right? The month of Elul, God comes. The month of Tishrei, God comes to us. That's Dodili. My beloved comes to me. The month of Elul is the preparation of that. We have to arouse our love and fear by means of an arousal from below. And that's the month of Elul. Ani Ladodi. Ine, behold, know that it's known, Sheba Elul, that the month of Elul, whose Zaman is the time, these colors, Yud Gimel Midas Urachim, is the time when the 13 attributes of mercy were revealed. Where do we get this 13 attributes of mercy? The Jewish people sinned with the golden calf. And Moses went up on Mount Sinai the second time and asked for forgiveness. And then he came back down and he went back up a third time. And that was in the first day of Elul when he went up, third time. And he stayed on Mount Sinai for 40 days. From the first day of Elul, 40 days later, that's Yom Kippur. So Moses received the second tablets on Yom Kippur. And in those 40 days that Moses was on Mount Sinai the last time, God was basically saying to him, come on, Moses, you want me to give you the tablets? You see what they did with the first tablets. You see what happened? Leave me alone, do me a favor, and, let me wipe out the Jews. Not all of them. I'll leave you, and because what's the whole business? What do they want? The whole purpose of the Jewish people is to serve me. They don't want to, so it was a faulty product. We'll do a recall. And Moses said, no, 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 God, don't do it. You don't do it. It's true. The Jewish people have all sorts of faults, but they're your people. They're your people. And what's everybody going to say in the world? And et cetera, et cetera. And God said, okay, I'll give you the 13 attributes of mercy. So Moses got the 13 attributes of mercy. This is for when the Jews do the worst possible sins they can do, as the 13 attributes of mercy remind God that the Jewish people are his people. They come from his essence. And if they are a stiff-necked people and a problematic people, it's because they have the DNA of the Creator. Right? God also is, how do you say, independent, and he thinks there's nothing before him because there is nothing before him. And we're created in that same image. So what do you want? Okay, so this month of Elul is the month of the 13 attributes of mercy. God reveals this essence connection between him and the Jewish people. That's the days of Elul, the days of final forgiveness. When Moses was given the second tablets and he came down with them on Yom Kippur, 13 attributes of mercy. So this month is the month of the 13 attributes of mercy. What God gives. One second. We just finished saying, just one sentence before, that the month of Elul, there is no revelation of God. God reveals himself from Tishrei. Tishrei are the days of awe. That's when God reveals himself and everybody is shaking and trembling, and it's a big holiday. And now we're saying that God reveals the 13 attributes of mercy, which is his essence connection with the Jews. The whole month of Elul, that's higher than Tishrei. That's higher than Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. That's higher than anything. What's going on? I thought that in the month of Elul, God is not revealing himself. The month of Elul is when we do everything. And now he's saying, no, the month of Elul, God reveals the 13 attributes of mercy. How can we have to understand that? If God reveals this 13 attributes of mercy, then why are the days of Elul weekdays? The Einam Yom Tov, and they're not a Yom Tov. They're not a holiday. Like Shabbos and Yom Tov. And then there's revelation of God. Shabbos, Yom Tov. Why is Shabbat and Yom Tov special? Because there's a special revelation of God on those days. There's a revelation of God, and especially in the time of the 13 attributes of mercy. The 13 attributes of mercy, this is a ray of godliness. Elyon Me'od, very, very high. These are things which are revealed only in Yom Kippur, in the Holy of Holies. And now we're saying in the month of Elul, this is revealed every day? If so, why isn't every day of the month of Elul a holiday? Bavada yesh hefresh. There's a certain big difference between Yom Kippur and the days of Elul. Why? So what's going on? Even more. What do we say? The month of Elul is the month when we go up to God. We put our energy, our heart, our soul, our desires, our all of our goals are only to be close to the Creator and do what the Creator wants, coming from below to above. We're coming from the darkness toward the light of God, and God reveals this light on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even though that it's awesome when he reveals it. But the month of Elul is sort of dark, and we strive to get up to God. Okay, a person would ask a question, why do we strive to get up to God? If it's so dark, and darkness is all that there is, how do we even know that there is such a thing as God? Why should we strive to get up to something we don't even know what it is? There's no. The month of Elul, there's the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy. And that's the highest of all reveals. So one second, if God reveals himself, so what do we have to strive for? He's revealing himself. So we do have to strive. We don't have to strive. That we're in the darkness, we're in the revelation, the 13 attributes of mercy. What's going on over here? So we're going to see that there's something in the middle. Here it goes. Achine Yuvan, we can understand. Opi mashal, a example, a parable. Lamelech. Once upon a time, there was a king. Shekorim bo'o, that before he came into the city, into his royal palace, Yotzim Anshe Ir, the people from the city, come out likrato to meet him. Umakablim panav, and they receive his face, they receive his countenance, in the field. So the people are working in the field, and there's some people that are even in the desert. They're just totally farblunget and lost. And then there's other people that are in the city. They're in the city. And they all come. The king goes out into the field. Where does he come from? It's not clear here. There's different, but nevertheless, the king comes out into the field. And he makes an election campaign. As then Rashaim called Misha, wrote to anyone who wants to come out to receive his face. Vahu makabel et kulam, and he receives it, all of them, a savor panim yafos, with a pleasant countenance, umara panim sachos, and he shows a shining face lekulam, to everybody. So the king wants the people to love him. He wants the people to choose him. He wants the people to be his people. So the king does it. Let's say for our purposes, he comes out from the palace once a year, and he goes into the field. That anyone who wants to can come in to see the field. They can see how great the king is, how wonderful the king is, how royal the king is, how the king is different from everybody else, how he is the king. He's really fit to be the king. A different person. So he comes out to the field. When he comes out to the field, everybody lets everybody else know the king is in the field. Let's go. Let's see it. Let's have a look from. Huh? Oh. When he goes back to the city, to his palace, and afterwards they come. Afterwards, when he actually goes into the palace of his kingship, then you can't go in. That's like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You can't go in ki'im b'reshut. You have to have permission. And also on muvcharim, not everybody gets permission. Only the special people can go. Also, the same thing is, we'll see how this makes sense. Also, the same thing is, also the same thing is in the month of Elul. In the month of Elul, we go out to receive the face of the king, but the king is in the field. The 13 attributes of mercy come to us in the field, because it says that God shines his face on us. This is the thing of God shining his 13 attributes of mercy face to face in the month of Elul. Namely, that's revealed Gilui Penimis Ritzono. The month of Elul, God is more accessible. You start to feel it's a little bit different. God shines to the source of the Jewish people. You're a little bit more happy to be a Jew. You're a little more aware that you're a Jew. You're a little more feel a little more responsibility to be a Jew. That you feel that that's the main will of the Jewish people, as we're going to talk about before with the name Israel, what Israel means. We'll see it tomorrow, God willing. Now let's do the Devar Malchut. Elul is going to be, by the way, not this week, but next week. What do we say? The first day of Elul is going to be next week on Friday. It's going to be the first day of Elul. Okay. 1 minute, I'll answer the question. Excuse me 1 moment.